seen it someone else's perspective. The NBA, the MLB, the NFL, NCAA, everything sports related. Seen by Steve Paz's perspective. It's the SP Show. SP Show with Steve Paz exclusively on YouTube. Here is your host, Steve Paz. Alright guys, we're back with SP Show. So, crazy things happening. NBA playoffs are being sealed, and Kentucky's the next NCAA champ. So, let's get started. Alright, so we're going to analyze Pacers' next game from last night. So, Pacers won 112-104, and on the day after Reggie Miller was selected to the Hall of Fame, Danny Granger offered up an homage to Indiana's legendary three-point shooter, scoring 14 of his 27 points in the fourth, including consecutive dagger threes. Granger sparked a remarkable comeback from a 15-point deficit as the Pacers rallied to beat New York 112-104 Tuesday in Indianapolis. Indiana trailed 89-74 early in the fourth quarter, but Pacers coach Frank Vogel switched to a small lineup for one of the few times this season, and the Pacers responded with a 27-4 run to turn it around. Paul George scored 11 of his 18 in the final 5 minutes to help Indiana withstand a late assault by Carmelo Anthony, who scored 8 in a row. For the Knicks, as they closed 103-101, but Anthony's last two three-point tries rimmed out, and the Pacers pulled away. Indiana improved 32-21 and moved one half game ahead of Orlando into third place in the East. New York fell to 27-27 as its lead over Milwaukee was cut to 1.5 games in the battle for the number 8 seed. Danny Granger says, "It was ironic. He was elected to the Hall of Fame Monday. From one shooter to another, my tribute to Reggie Miller." So the Pacers outscored the Knicks 40-17 in the fourth, and New York shot 35%, 7 for 20, and committed 5 turnovers. When Vogel went small, he shifted Granger to power forward, guarding Anthony, and had Louis Edmondson in the middle, while starting big men David West and Roy Hibbert headed to the bench, with Edmondson executed the pick and slip and pick and roll flawlessly, and perimeter players George Leandro Barboza and George Hill making the right decisions with the ball. Pacers became the aggressors and took the game away from the Knicks. Quote number 2 says, "It was a contrast of styles. Then playing a spread lineup in our power post game, we wanted to try to pound it and impose our will on them. And we tried that for 3 quarters, and it wasn't working. We were down big, so we made an adjustment and tried to go with our small lineup, which we don't typically do. But we have a history of playing Danny at power forward, so he's comfortable there, and man did they respond." So Granger followed up his 32-point outing in an overtime win in Houston on Saturday with another big game, making all 4 of his shots in the fourth quarter. 3 from the three-point line, adding 7 rebounds to his 27 points. Anthony had a season-high 39 points on 17 for 31 shooting and had 10 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. New York's reserves combined to shoot 9 for 25 from the field. Carmelo Anthony says, 40 points in the fourth is just too much. They were able to get some steals, get some rebounds. They just outworked us. Going into that fourth, we kind of got lax and they ran away with it. I think we got a little bit complacent being up 17. They stuck with it and they played harder coming into their fourth quarter. They wanted it more in that fourth. So Vogel first started thinking about going small over the weekend when associate head coach Brian Shaw pointed out that the Knicks have been using Anthony at power forward with a spread lineup. He toyed with the idea of starting a smaller group but opted to stick with his bigger first unit. He also waited too long to make the switch, putting the small group out to start the fourth quarter, and it proved to be the game-changing strategic ploy. Knicks guard J.R. Smith was ejected from the game with 10.4 seconds remaining for throwing Barbosa to the floor after the two locked arms while battling for rebound position. It was the second flagrant foul of the game for the Knicks, as Iman Shumpert was called for undercutting West in transition. The Pacers have overcome double-digit fourth-quarter deficits 2 games in a row and 3 times in the last 2 weeks. They trailed Washington by 11 in the fourth of an 85-83 win, trailed Houston by 10 in the fourth of a 104-102 overtime win, and trailed the Knicks by 15. The Pacers wore their bright yellow uniforms for the second time this season, first at home. New York was without 2 starters, Jeremy Lin, knee, and Amari Stoudemire back, as well as reserves Terrell Jeffries, knee, and Bill Walker, elbow. George Hill played without the brace he has worn since sustaining a sprained left shoulder March 6th. So for the Pacers, it's today at Washington. I think that's a win. Friday hosting Oklahoma City. That's a loss. And then Saturday hosting Boston. That's a loss. For the Knicks, tomorrow at Orlando, I say loss. Sunday hosting Chicago, loss. Tuesday at Chicago, loss. So that's how that goes. And alright, so the game stats. Alright, so you have Pacers winning in field goal percentage, 47.7 to 45.8. Three-point percentage, 43.5. Knicks, 26.1. Pacers. Horrible. Free throw percentage, 77.4 Pacers, 72% Knicks. Offensive rebounds, 45 Indiana, 44 Knicks. Offensive rebounds tied at 16. Turnovers, 12 New York, 8 Indiana. Fast break points, 15 in New York, 18 Indiana. Biggest lead, 17 Knicks, 8 Pacers. Points in the paint, 38 New York, 54 Indiana. So there you guys go. Those are the game stats. And New York won 2 categories. That's pretty much it. And then the Indiana Pacers won 4 categories, including less turnovers. So that counts as a win for them. So the Pacers won on paper, and they won the game. So player stats. Anthony, 39 for Knicks. Granger, 27, Pacers. Rebounds, Chandler, 14, New York, 8 by Paul George, Indiana. Assists, J.R. Smith, 4, New York, 6, George Hill, Indiana. Steals, 2 players, 2 each for Knicks, and Paul George, 3 for the Pacers. Blocks, Steve Novak, 2 for New York, 4 players had 1 each for Indiana. So there you guys go. The Knicks are series 2-1 to take it to the playoffs where they might meet. But the Knicks, they averaged an average of 108.5, and the Indiana Pacers averaged 96 points per game. So there you guys go. That's an analysis of the Knicks-Pacers game. So, I mean, this game is mostly for playoff positioning. It is an important game for both teams, but I mean, I knew it was going to be close. They're just both inconsistent teams. You see them win once, you see them lose second time, and then they win again, then they lose. They have bad patterns. They need to start being consistent. I know Mike Woodson has been doing a good job, but they have to start winning more games. So, we're going to have a commercial 1 minute early, but when we come back, we're going to analyze the Philadelphia 76ers Miami Heat game. So that's when and then after that, we're going to analyze NBA playoffs and much more. That's when we come back in the SB Show.
You know what? You gotta admit that Tim Tebow, what he wants to do is bring the Jets to the top. That's what he wants to do. He wants to make the Jets a playoff team. He wants to be a solid backup quarterback. He wants to be the best backup quarterback in the history of the National Football League. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I just can't be your... I am only a sports show talk show host. The only thing I can tell you is that any guy of the sport that kneels down to food, I'm not saying that anything wrong with that, I'm just saying that any guy like him is good because he's focused on his work and he's committed to his goals. And if you ask me, he is definitely better than Drew Stanton. Anyhow, Drew Stanton is in Indianapolis. There's just no excuse. Tim Tebow is going to be better than Drew Stanton. We just have to see how much better he is going to be. But that he's going to be better is the truth. Now, if you're going to tell me Tim Tebow is going to be the best backup quarterback in the NFL, you know what I'm going to tell you? It's not happening. Tune in to the SP Show. YouTube.com/user/capital S lowercase p capital S lowercase PORTS capital C lowercase ORNER. YouTube.com/user/SpSportsCorner. Make sure to tune in and subscribe now. The SP Show. Everything sports related and a bit more.
And we are back with the SP Show. So, now we're going to analyze the Heat Sixers. The Heat beat the Sixers 99-93. And LeBron James, he scored a season high 41 points as the Heat defeated the Sixers, Miami, to clinch a spot in the playoffs. With a win, the Heat completed a sweep of the season series against the Sixers. The win also was the Heat's 16th straight at home, improving their league best home record to 22-2. Miami played without Dwayne Wade, who sat out with a bruised left knee. It was the second time that he defeated the Sixers despite Wade being sidelined. James picked up the slack with his season high, while Mario Chalmers 19 and Chris Bosh 17 also turned in solid performances. The Heat, who were recovering from Sunday's embarrassing loss to the Celtics, started slow before waking up in the third. Miami never looked back after starting the second half with a 9-1 run. The Sixers did pull it to within 85-81 with 4:37 left on a Spencer Hawes basket, but James scored the Heat's next 10 points to close it out. Heat coach Eric Spoelstra says, "In the second half, LeBron obviously stepped up and shouldered the scoring load for us, particularly when we were struggling at the end of the clock and end of possessions. He made plays that MVP players make, so he's already being discussed as MVP. He does deserve it. He's a great player, but we'll see what happens. Because you have Kobe, you have Kevin Durant, you have Kevin Love, so let's see what happens. You have Chris Paul." Alright, so James scored 15 of the Heat's 23 points in the fourth. The Heat trailed by as many as 5 in the first half, and 54-51 at halftime, before turning things around in the third quarter. They outscored the Sixers 25-16 and led by 10 at one point. Sixers coach Doug Collins says, "To start the third quarter, we were careless with the ball and turned it over. We didn't have the crisp movement we had in the first half. Turnovers are really the killer for us. We had 17 on the year. We get up over 14 a game. We don't usually win." James was 15 for 25 from the field, carrying the team in Wade's absence. He also had 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. Sixers starters Elton Brand and Drew Holiday combined to shoot 5 for 17 from the field. Brand's 1 for 6 performance came just days after his posting one of his best games of the season against the Atlanta Hawks. Before the game, Collins said the Sixers expected to see more of James with Wade out of the lineup. That proved to be the case. The Heat rode James back, putting the ball in his hands. James ran the point on occasion, allowing him to set up the offense. Sixers had